Saxe-Coburg, very happily married. They have 9 children. Very suddenly, in December 1861, at Windsor, Albert died 42 years old. Victoria was distraught. She became a widow, and she was widowed for 40 years of her life. She went on to have 42 grandchildren, 87 great-grandchildren. Could you imagine Christmas? Anyway, 10 years before Albert died, he organised something in the park called the Great Exhibition. It was like a world fair, because once upon a time, we were an empire. We controlled huge corners of the globe. And this tells you a story. So, on each corner, there is a large marble statue. They represent Europe, Asia, and at the back, Africa and the Americas, all of which were represented in the exhibition. You look a little higher, you see agriculture, engineering, manufacturing, and commerce. In the middle, the gold statue is the man himself. That is Prince Albert, and under his arm, he has a book of the exhibition that was his brainchild. Then you look a little higher, you've got gold statues which are called Victorian virtues. Victorians were very God-fearing people, and they represent things like charity, humility, mercy. Then higher still, more gold statues that are angels, and on the very top, you've got the cross representing heaven itself. So it's kind of telling you about his life and work here, and then if you like a journey to a better place. And then if you just swing around, other side of the road, the Royal Albert Hall, one of the most iconic venues in the country. This was unveiled in 1871, and it has boxing matches, tennis tournaments, conferences. If any of you are moviegoers, James Bond people, 007, the last 3 Bond movies, the world premieres were all here. Also, it's where we have pop concerts. Big names, but not the uber stars. If we have mega stars, they will go to Wembley. Have you heard of Wembley? Yes. 90,000 seats. You're going to be relatively big to fill this, 5,272 seats. But if you get a mega star like Lady Gaga, Madonna, the Spice Girls, they will go to Wembley. An amazing looking building, built on the same idea as the Colosseum in Rome, with some of the worst acoustics in the world. It's a complete circle. So the music just kind of bounces round and round and back again. So, all of this dedicated to the man up there. Take 5, do your photos. Now, there's no traffic in the park, but you have got this parade at Whitehall. Now, I understand you're off to Paris tomorrow? Okay, so, how's your French? Okay, good luck.
I don't know if you're saying.
So, what's interesting about London, architecture, style, shape, height, we have no restrictions. Paris, you will find a lot more conservative. So coming up on the right, we're about to pass a deluxe hotel. It's called Bulgari. It's owned by the jewellery company. And now imagine, you've booked online, you're paying $1 zillion a night, you turn up very excitedly, you check in, go up to your hotel room, open your curtains, and there is a rhinoceros hanging outside your bedroom window. Okay, so in a moment as we pull forwards, get ready to look on the right and you'll see the rhinoceros halfway up the wall. It's by an Italian artist called Stefano Bombardieri. Been here about 3.5 years. You can see just coming up on the right now, you can see, oh well, as and when the truck moves out the way, you will see the Bulgari where the vehicles are parked. Then you can see the rhinoceros. Do you know why the rhinoceros is there? Because we can. That's the whole point of London. You don't need a reason. The local people are objecting to what they are looking at on a daily basis. I don't see why. I mean, poor soul, look, he's not doing anybody any harm, is he? Just hanging around looking horny. Sorry. You'll remember me for all the wrong reasons, won't you? So, this is what's interesting about London, is you never quite know what's next. Now, are you shoppers? Yeah. Okay, we need your money. Please give generously. We Brexited, did. Do you know what I mean by Brexit? Okay, we left the European Union, but to be honest with you, we were never really European. We're British. We're different. We're special. You realise I'm special? We drive on the other side of the road. How does it feel? Weird, okay. Do you know why we drive this way? Because we can, exactly. Actually, if you cast your mind back hundreds of years, imagine, ladies, you are Rapunzel in the tower. You're waiting to be rescued by that knight in shining armour. Along he comes with his sword, shield, American Express card. He's come to save the day. Now, back in these times, the idea was you unseated your opponent from the horse. You imagine you pull your sword with your right hand, or jousting. Much easier to get over there where the cars are with your right hand, rather than if you're on the other side as you drive, and then you're leaning across. Does that make sense? So a lot of things I'll tell you about, actually when you know the story, there is an origin, a reason. Also, if you want to buy a little souvenir or something to take home, have a look just coming up on the left. Just as we come up to the traffic lights, there's a really nice little gift and souvenir shop. The McLaren dealership. They're open till 6. They do take charge cards, they will gift wrap, and they can ship. Now, whilst you're in London, do yourself a favour. Do not watch TV, do not listen to the radio, do not buy a newspaper. Misery, doom, destruction. Cost of living crisis, energy crisis, crisis, Brexit, Schmexit, COVID. It's just all misery. Don't panic. I come bearing very good news, ladies. Are you braced? We have got more billionaires in London than any other city in Europe. You're here until the morning? Okay, get on those smartphones, swipe right. And as we go forwards, coming up on the right, the main competitor for Harrods department store, Harvey Nichols, or as we sometimes call it, Harvey Nicks. Very lovely. They always have, their window displays are always a little bit sort of alternative. So they're always a little bit different. And then as we pass Harvey Nichols, we are coming up to one of the busiest road junctions in London, Hyde Park Corner, or as it's officially called, Duke of Wellington Place. Now, does anybody know who the Duke of Wellington was or what he did? Okay, I'm telling you this now because you're going to France next. Okay, you will never hear this mentioned ever again. The Duke of Wellington is basically the man who defeated Napoleon at Waterloo. He defeated Napoleon at Waterloo. So if you ask your guide in Paris, do you know anything about the Duke of Wellington? They just look at you, they go, no. The Battle of Waterloo? No. Because they lost and we won. Terribly sorry. So basically this whole area coming up ahead, all dedicated to the man who is responsible for me still speaking English. Over to the right hand side coming into view is a huge arch. This is called the Wellington Arch. Up on top of the arch there is a massive sculpture called Peace with Her Quadriga. You can see a winged figure standing up on top holding an olive branch. She is the Statue of Peace. She's in a chariot being pulled by 4 horses, and these are the quadriga. So quad telling you 4. Look to the right hand side where the bus is, there's a man on horseback. This is the Duke of Wellington, Arthur Wellesley, literally just where the bus is, sitting on his favourite horse, Copenhagen. And he is looking at the building to your left hand side here. This is called Apsley House, or as it's otherwise known, Number 1 London. Now, if you were to go back to Texas and you just wrote on a postcard or an envelope, Number 1 London, England, it'll end up here. This is basically Number 1 London. Hyde Park Corner, all dedicated to the Duke of Wellington. It depends which language actually you read your history books in. You read about Waterloo in English, we have got books this thick. How clever we were, what a fabulous battle it was. You read about Waterloo in French, 1 line, small print at the back, where no one can find it because they lost. You know, the English and the French, we're what I call frenemies. We're like an old married couple. We've been arguing about everything and nothing for about 700 years, but we like each other in a rather strange kind of way. Now, as we turn... Oh, jeez. Could you imagine driving here? No. I mean, what you're realising very rapidly is we're not built for a car, we're not built for a bus. London was built for a horse and cart. Nobody ever envisaged this was going to happen. Just smile and wave like the new Queen Consort. So, as we turn, coming up on the left-hand side, you will see the Queen Mother Gates. These date from 1993, and they were unveiled for the Queen Mother's birthday. Now, you will see a lion and a unicorn. Start looking to the left-hand side. So you see the lion and the unicorn. The lion represents England. The unicorn represents Scotland, because as you probably know, England and Scotland, we're one big happy union. Ish. Have you yet discovered the land of Ish? Everything here is Ish. So remember, I'm British. What's the weather tomorrow? It's going to be a warmish day. Do you want to meet for lunch? Yeah, sure. What time? It's one-ish. Ish covers most eventualities. I'm 40 now. Ish. Yeah, anyway, moving rapidly on. You catch on quickly, don't you? So to the left side, this is all Hyde Park. This is the biggest park in the capital. And then over to the right-hand side, you'll see a whole collection of deluxe hotels. Metropolitan, London Hilton, Intercontinental. Coming up over to the right, the Dorchester, owned by the Sultan of Brunei. You'll also notice a lot of car showrooms along this avenue. Do you notice as well, with all this bless you, with the traffic, how we all just sit here? We're very calm. Nobody does anything about anything. You're going to Paris. Things will get a lot more animated. Have you heard anybody use a horn yet? You did? Oh, they'll be French. We don't do that sort of thing, it's terribly rude. We all just sit very calmly in the traffic and we wait because there is nowhere to go. You got... Oh, okay. Right. What happens in London stays in London. I'm not sure about the phrase you just used, but anyway, some things don't translate that well. If you know what I mean. As we're driving, you can see, do you know, sometimes I don't know what's coming next, actually. You can see, focus people, you can see BMW, Mini, Porsche. Then over to your right, you can see the Grand Old Lady of Park Lane. This is the Grosvenor House Hotel. This was the first hotel in London to have an indoor swimming pool. It's also where the Queen learned to ice skate. Only hotel in London to ever have an indoor skating rink. Then as we continue, look over to your right, you can see the original townhouses. This gives you an idea of how life used to be before the big hotels appeared on the avenue. As we come up towards the top of Park Lane, we're going to turn around a very, very big intersection. And remember what I've said about Westminster. So read signs, look out the window. We're going to turn around this big circle, and in the middle of the road there is a large arch, and it's made from marble. Would anyone take a guess what we call the area? Thank you. It was originally just designed to stand outside Buckingham Palace. It was designed by a man called John Nash. They didn't really feel it matched the main facade, so they brought it up here, and today it gives the area its name. Now, do you like a bit of blood and guts? Headless bodies? Screaming people? Okay, nice. This used to be where we had public hangings. Executions used to take place at this site. Now we're going to go all the way around, if you would, Adrian, that would be kind. And over on the other side, you will see there's a traffic island. As we come round, you will see over to the far side a small traffic island. If you get ready to look at the paving stones, they're all rectangular. But in the middle, there's one circular stone, and it's got a cross on it. And this was the site of the Tyburn tree. This is where we used to hang common criminals. Now, if you were found guilty of a major crime and you were nobody of any consequence, you were just a common criminal, they would bring you through the streets of London from a disgusting place called Newgate Prison. Newgate Prison today is the Old Bailey Courthouse. Then you'd be taken to Tyburn to be hung. On the way to the hangman, if the guards were in a really good mood, they made one last stop, so the prisoner could have their final drink of ale before they went to the hangman. And it was a tradition that became known as having one for the rope, which became one for the... And you will see what I'm talking about as we come around. We're going to come straight round, but if you look on the left, where there's a traffic island, we're going to go straight ahead and then over to the right. But if you look where the vehicles are turning, there's a couple of young trees. Look down into the paving stones as we come further forward. Can you see between the trees there's one circular paving stone? And it's got a cross on it. That's where we used to have the hangings. The guys on the cart who used to bring the prisoners to the hangman, they had to stay really focused because of what they were doing, and they were not allowed to drink alcohol. Do you know why they were not allowed to drink alcohol? Because they were on the wagon. Is that an expression you use if you're not drinking? on the wagon. All these things you never realise, but hey, hashtag living the dream. Now, we're going to the right, but straight up ahead is the longest shopping street in London. Now, we've got two main shopping areas. South side of the park, we skirted it briefly. Knightsbridge, Harrods, Brompton Road. North side, Oxford Street, Regent Street. This is the longest shopping street in London, 1.5 miles long. And in that road, you will find the biggest department store in town, which is called...
Harrods.
No, it's a trick question and you failed. It's called Selfridges. Started life by a man called Harry Gordon Selfridge, who came from Chicago. Came to London, couldn't believe how backward we were as a nation when it came to shopping. When he arrived to go shopping, if you were from the better classes, you just didn't. It was a very vulgar business. It was a very vulgar business. If you were from the better classes, ladies, your dressmaker came to the house. Gentlemen, you had an appointment with your tailor, but to go shopping, it was what we term here NOCD. Do you know what I mean by NOCD? Not our class, darling. It was very taboo. On the left side, another nice little souvenir shop. If you happen to be James Bond 007, of course you drive an Aston Martin, and if you can afford to buy one of those, you can afford to live in the area we're going into now. We're just going to drive very briefly into an area called Mayfair. It takes its name from a very wild, drunken outdoor fair that used to be held in the month of... this area is not lived in by the wealthy, it's lived in by the uber rich. And if you meet anybody whilst you're here who lives in Mayfair, let them buy dinner. Now, this whole district is all owned by one person. He is called Hugh Grosvenor. He is the Duke of Westminster, and he is in his early 30s. He is worth an estimated £9.5 billion. And are you braced, ladies? Guess what? He's single. Yay, hurrah. Okay, so how does a 30-something get to own all of this and be worth 9.5 billion? Inheritance. Now, you know the expression, money can't buy you health and happiness, which I don't totally agree with. I mean, let's be honest, you're much better off to be miserable in the back of an Aston Martin than you are in a truck. Well, let's be blunt. His father, Gerald Grosvenor, 64 years old, 7 years ago, massive heart attack, dropped dead. The land, the money, the title, the whole shebang, all went to the son, Hugh Grosvenor, and he owns the entire district we're in. Now, we're coming into Grosvenor Square. Remember what I've said about names. Read the sign, look out the window. We often call this Little America, because there's a lot of connections with the United States. Now, coming up on the right, there's a very big construction site. This used to be the American Embassy. The US Embassy was here in the 1960s, moved about 4 years ago to the other side of the river, designed by an architect called Ira Saarinen, same architect who designed the arch in St. Louis in Missouri. Then as we come into Grosvenor Square, we're going to go all the way around to the right. Start looking over to the right-hand side in just a moment. You will see the back of a statue. And this is the 32nd President of the United States. Any idea? Number 32, here he is to the right. FDR. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Then as we go round to the right, you will see coming up on the right-hand side, there's a sort of temple or pagoda. This is actually a memorial garden to the victims of September the 11th, who died in New York in the World Trade disaster in 2001. And underneath this memorial, there is a piece of iron girder pulled from the wreckage of the Twin Towers in Manhattan. And then we're going to go all the way over to the right. Keep looking to the right-hand side. You can still see what remains of the US Embassy. Can you see the eagle is still on the top of the embassy building? And then, as we're continuing round, you're in Grosvenor Square. Now, we've got many squares in London. Some of the squares are public, some of the squares are private. This is a public square, which means anybody can walk through the middle, sit on the benches, admire the view. If it's a private... I know, really, she's not obviously like that child, does she? Well, really, I mean, she's on the phone. She's completely walking in front of a 50-foot bus. I mean, really. So, some of our squares are public, some are private. This is a public square, which means anybody can walk through. If it's a private square, then all the way round there will be gates that will be locked, and only the residents that live in the square have a key to unlock the gates and go inside. So, we are going to head back up towards Park Lane, and then we're off to see the most famous and photographed building in the entire country. Any idea? Buckingham Palace. And you know what to do when we get there? Smile and wave. We have light bulb, we have a coronation, May the 6th, King Charles III. We're really excited. We can't wait, we are super excited. Poor Charles. He got there in the end, 74 years old. So we have King Charles III and Queen Consort Gorilla. So, it's a bit of a story. Now, as I said earlier, you're a mixed group in the way of ages. So, younger folk on the bus. Are you familiar with the name of Diana, Princess of Wales? Okay. So, our current king now, he married in 1981 a 19-year-old by the name of Lady Diana Spencer. Before, during and after he married Diana, he had a friend. A very close friend with benefits. Camilla Parker Bowles. Now, they should have married in the first place, but Diana was what they needed. And what did they need? Someone pretty. Keep going. Ladies, if you marry a future king... That doesn't always...
She was not married
right,
before.
Ladies, if you marry... Okay, calm. And I bet you read the Examiner and the Inquirer, don't you? Did you buy Harry's book, The Spare? Well, I don't know why anyone would buy that thing. Basically, if you marry a future King of England, your main job, ladies, is babies. That's what Diana did in the 1980s. It's what Kate Middleton's done in the 21st century. You keep royalty going. So, we're off to the palace. We'll go and see what this country is all about, and I will tell you everything you need to know and a whole lot more. The question comes almost daily. Did Charles really have to be the next king? And the answer simply was yes. We have a legal document called Line of Succession. The line of succession lists the order of the royal family, who is next. So until last September it was the Queen, Charles, William, George, Charlotte, Louis, Harry, and this list goes on. Now, the line can only change for 3 reasons. Death, birth, abdication. Death. The Queen passed last September. Everybody went 1 up the list. Number 2 is birth. So, as you know, William and Harry are brothers. Well, just about. William and Kate got married. Along came George. Harry went down 1. Along came Charlotte, down 2. Louis, down 3. So people get born in, you drop. Die, you go up. And the third reason, abdication. Are you familiar with abdication? No, if you know. Basically, thank you, but no thank you. And that's only ever happened once, 1936. 1936 is the year I call the year of the 3 kings. And I should just say, not the Christmas ones. We had 3 kings in a very short span of time. The Queen's grandfather, who was George V, died. His eldest son became Edward VIII. Edward VIII fell in love with an American divorcee, Wallis Warfield Simpson from Baltimore. Rules at the time said you can be the king, you can marry a divorcee, but you can't be king and marry someone that's divorced. What are you going to do? Edward VIII turned around and said, no, if I can't marry who I want, I'm not the king. Ladies and gents, it is said he gave up the crown of England for the woman he loved. Not bad. What do? Right, number 1, you have a constitutional crisis. Number 2, you make a movie with Colin Firth and Helena Bonham Carter called The King's Speech, all about the crisis. Number 3, you get out this document I'm explaining. You look who's next. Next was the younger brother. Younger brother became George VI, and that was the Queen's father. Are you still vaguely with me at the back? Yes. Did Charles have to be the next king? Yes, unless he died before his mother, because if he was dead, there was a bit of a problem, or we turn around and say, no, I'm not doing it. So here we are, Charles III. Over to your right, you may or may not have seen this large horse's head. It is the tallest bronze sculpture in London, and it's called Still Water. Dates from 2011. You've seen a rhinoceros since we've met, you've seen a horse's head since we've met. You never quite know what is around the corner. But this is what I was saying about London, it is always an adventure. So we come back down towards Hyde Park Corner and we'll make our way down to Buckingham Palace. We're going to get off the bus, I'll walk you across to the palace, tell you all about it, then I'll give you a few minutes to do photos, we'll come back to the bus and we'll continue. Do you have any questions thus far? Tell me.
No, I haven't.
Why'd you raise your hand then?
No, Hyde Park is nothing to do with the Duke of Wellington. This whole area, Duke of Wellington Place. Yeah, two totally different things. That was the Manor of Hyde, where it takes its name from. Where we're coming to now, this is all from Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington. So they're not connected. They're kind of connected together where they stand, but not any connection apart from that. Anything else thus far? Can you understand me okay? Do I sound quite British? Okay. Is that good or bad or good? Okay, perfect. So as we come around Hyde Park Corner, you will see many war memorials. This is very much an area dedicated to various conflicts and wars. As we enter the circle, you'll see on the right there are several posts coming out of the ground. This is the New Zealand War Memorial. To the far right on the other side is the Australia War Memorial. And once again to the right you see the Wellington Arch. You could come back here, buy a ticket, go inside, and there's an elevator that takes you all the way up to the very top. So as we turn around Hyde Park Corner, coming up on your left there's a lot of greenery and trees, and I'm asked all the time, which park is this? What you can see now on the left side here, this is not a park, this is the largest private garden in London. This is the back of Buckingham Palace. Now you might look at this thinking, really? Well, they're not very welcoming, are they, the royals? Barbed wire, spikes, cameras, instruments of torture. That's because they've had several uninviteds. The most famous, the poor Queen. She was in residence, late one evening, walking along here to your left. None of this was on the brick wall, it was a plain brick wall. A gentleman by the name of Michael Fagan decided to invite himself in to meet the Queen. He gets over the wall, he gets into the grounds of Buckingham Palace, wanders round, sees a window left open on the first level by mistake, shinned up a drain pipe and he got in. He goes off on a nice self-guided tour around Buckingham Palace. Nobody stopped him. On his way round, he managed to find the wine cellar. He helped himself to a bottle of wine, made his way upstairs. 4 o'clock in the morning, he managed to find the Queen's bedroom, and the Queen was in bed asleep. She only woke up when she heard this sort of pop as he pulled the cork out the bottle. Well, apparently the Queen looked down the bed kind of stunned, wouldn't you? And Michael Fagan just looked at her and said, "I'm so sorry if I've woken you up. I don't suppose you got a cigarette?" The Queen picked up the phone, she dialed for security. It was 20 minutes before anybody came to see what was going. Well, nobody can imagine, oh yeah, sure, there's a man in the Queen's bedroom. Okay, fine, yeah. The next day, quite a lot of people lost their jobs, as you can appreciate. Well, look, they were lucky. 400 years earlier, they'd have lost their heads, not their jobs. Everyone asked the same question. What happened to Michael Fagan? Well, he became a celebrity. Because British people, we love a disaster. As long as it goes wrong, we're thrilled. So we're going to turn to the left, and where we turn, this is called the Royal Mews, M-E-W-S. If you've seen royal weddings, funerals, coronations, they ride around in these very elaborate horse-drawn carriages. Here to your left side now, this building is where we keep coaches and horses used in these big royal events. Then you will see the Queen's Gallery, which has to change its name, because of course now it's the King's Gallery. And then a little ways further up, hopefully Adrian will be able to find somewhere to stop. It's always a bit of an adventure here. Okay, we can tack our, oops, there it goes. We can tack ourselves behind this other vehicle. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, oh, okay, we'll just wait for the tour bus to go. Well, actually, no, we're fine, actually. So, ladies and gents, all you need to do here is bring a camera or a cell phone. Again, please stick with me. Let me explain Buckingham Palace, then I'll give you time to do your photos, then we'll continue. Again, this is your bus, leave things on. And as you look at the building right now, would you say the king is here or would you say he's somewhere else?
He's here.
Why?
Flag up.
Okay, well there is actually always a flag above. It depends on what you see. Now, if you were here a couple of days ago, it was red, white and blue. The national flag, which is like the Stars and Stripes, we call ours the Union Jack. National flag above says, not here. A flag in 4 very bright squares called the Royal Standard, that says he is. So he is in residence. You can also tell he's here because if you look through the gates, there are 2 guard boxes, and if you look to the other end, there are 2 more. I've forgotten what this is. At the moment, there are 2 guards either end. That also symbolises the monarch is in residence. If you had 1 empty box, 1 guard, 1 empty box, 1 guard, that would say he's not here. So he is in residence. Now, apparently his mother, Elizabeth II, never liked Buckingham Palace. She called it the office. I think you'll agree, it is a big office. 775 rooms. It has its own post office, swimming pool, library. It is literally like a little world of its own. Now, anytime anything major happens, this is always what you see on TV. 29th of April 2011. Does anybody know what happened in London? We had a wedding, thank you very much. William and Kate got married in Westminster Abbey. They returned where we're standing, in through the central gates. Inside there was a reception for 600 people. Out here there were 92 billion people, waving flags, cheering, jumping up and down. Then when they were ready for the first time as newlyweds, William and Kate appeared up there in the middle on the balcony. We saw them together for the first time and we saw the kiss. And a second one as well, disgusting. Yes. Do you know what came next? The rest, no, not that quick. No, the rest of the family all up on the balcony and we got the official. Now just turn yourself around. Let me squish through. You're now looking at the Victoria Memorial. Up on top, the gold statue is Winged Victory. The actual statue is in the Louvre in Paris. Before you ask, no, that's not real gold, it's gold paint, gold leaf. Now, before I let you do your photos and mix and mingle, just stay with me for 2 more minutes. I just want to show you the Royal Avenue that you see on TV. Then I'll give you a few minutes photo time and then we'll head back to the bus. Follow me. No. No, porque no está. Okay, come right the way around me. So if you look straight ahead where I'm pointing, this is the road you see on TV. You saw William and Kate's wedding. Down that road they went. if you saw the Queen's funeral last year on this avenue. When you see London on May the 6th and you see King Charles III heading to Westminster Abbey for coronation, you can sit back in Texas and say, actually, do you know what? Been there, seen it, done it, got the t-shirt. That is called the Mall, or you would say back home, the Mall. This is where history is made. And you notice the road is a kind of red colour, giving the impression of a red carpet leading up and down to Buckingham Palace. If you then turn yourself around and look up, there she is. Poor old Victoria. She was a woman of few words following Albert's death. She was left widowed, as I said, for 40 years. And if you ever see her in later life, she's always wearing black and she always looks very morose and downtrodden. And normally dressed in black for the remainder of her life. And I think you will agree, it's not the most flattering of statues. And then it turned a whole lot uglier about 7 years ago. They decided to clean up the memorial and they water blasted to clean it. And if you look very closely, they broke her nose off. And they've stuck it back on and they have done a really bad job. She looks like Barry Manilow in a dress. So not nice at all. All the way around where we're standing, these are the Dominion Gates, countries over which Victoria reigned at the end of her life. Being cleaned at the moment, Canada Gate. Behind you, West Africa, South Africa. On this side is Australia, and where we walked through and we're going back to, Malaysia Gate. For obvious reasons, there are no US gates. Two things to say. Number one, we are terribly sorry. And number two, that was actually your choice, but there you are. Follow me. Follow.
No, America Gate scared you, honestly. Should have won. I heard I was trying to think
From the mouth. Oh, they must have known you're in town. Okay. Let me move out your way. I did make a few phone calls. They said they'd try and pass by.
Who's in the car?
And from up here, actually, you get a bird's eye view. Are you feeling quite royal now? I don't know where they're going. And I don't know where they've come from. Yeah, there's always got police escort. They come from the other side over to the right by Green Park. They come down from the barracks that we saw, and they come down that road. I have absolutely no idea where they're going. I'm always very honest with you guys. I don't know what's going on.
Voltea para allá para ver. Eric, turn your face. No, look at me.
A nice photo, backdrop of Buckingham Palace, If you saw the Queen's funeral last September, through that archway, William and Kate's wedding, through there. And on the 6th of May, when you see King Charles come to be crowned, he will enter through that doorway. Now, this church, does anybody know the denomination of this church? Catholic? No. We are officially Church of England. We were Catholic until a very bad man came along called Henry the... Does anyone know what Henry had? Do you know what else he had?
Gonorrhea.
Actually, probably right.
I think he did.
Actually, what I was going to say was commitment issues. He wanted to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Says to the advisors, go to Rome, talk to the Pope, get me a divorce. Pope turned around and said, excuse me, you're Catholic, we're in charge. I don't think so. Henry says, fine, no divorce, no Catholic. Bye-bye. As they say, the rest is history. Now, what they want to say to you here is, we are a church of the world. Doesn't matter where you're from, what you believe, you're welcome. Above the main doorway, there's a line of 10 statues. These are called modern-day martyrs. They only date from 1998, because more people died for belief in religion in the 20th century than any other century in history. Now, to convey this idea of a world church, look from the left going inwards. Fourth statue, you see a woman with like a veil. That's Elizabeth of Russia, granddaughter of Queen Victoria. She married a Russian Grand Duke. She became a member of the Russian Orthodox Church. 1918, murdered by the Bolsheviks in a mineshaft. To the right of her, there's a man with a child at his feet. That is Martin Luther King, son of a Baptist minister, assassinated in Memphis in 1968. Right of him, there's a man standing with a child in his arms, Oscar Romero from El Salvador in Central America. Roman Catholic bishop, spoke out about abuse of civil rights in his own land, assassinated whilst taking mass. So you see just there, Russian Orthodox, Baptist, Roman Catholic. So what they're trying to put across is, we are Church of England, but actually we are a church of the world. And if you want to visit, what is that? It's a church, it's a working religious building. So, get your bearings. Freedom time, the gift shop, all those things you never knew you needed, but we'd appreciate your money. Small space. So, we've seen royal matters, we've seen religious matters, and where we're going to turn in just a moment is the really nasty, ugly stuff, political. And remember, people say to me, you know, what does the king do? Or, you know, until last year, what does the queen do? Well, the main job officially, of course, is waving. Joking aside, the monarch is the head of the government, head of the army, head of the church. The king can declare war, he can dissolve parliament, he can stop an act to go through. Many statues around the square. As we turn, look to your left here, one of your own. You recognise this man? If not, why not? To the right hand side, the most famous clock in the world, which you know is called
Big Ben. No,
Elizabeth Tower. Exactly. Everyone calls it Big Ben. Big Ben is the 13.5-ton bell in the top of the tower. The actual structure is Elizabeth Tower. For us, Big Ben is a symbol of New Year's Eve. Now at home you focus on Times Square and you wait for them to drop the ball. We focus on Parliament Square and we wait for Big Ben to hit midnight. When Big Ben hits 12, everybody goes demented. We jump in the fountains, we open the champagne, we hug the police officers and we go home with the emergency services. And I have to tell you, as a Brit, if you get a police escort home on New Year's Eve, respect. Now, as we're turning around the square, coming up at the next corner on your right is the man who we voted the greatest Briton who ever lived. Now, let me ask you something. Do you realise, or have you realised, that you're on an island?
Yes.
I mean, we're a big island. We're not Hawaii, we're not the Caribbean, but we're an island. If I throw some names that you recognised globally, where are they from? William Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, Queen Victoria, Princess Diana,
No.
the Beatles,
Wales.
Harry Potter,
Elvis Presley.
Harry Styles. Always gets a cheer. Adele. Hello. It's me. We were asked to vote and have a look to your right. Do you know this man?
Churchill.
Winston Churchill. We voted him the greatest Briton who'd ever lived. And then as we turn, have a look to your left-hand side. This huge building is where most violent and evil crimes in England take place. It's called Parliament. Nowhere as old as it looks. Now, if you saw the Queen's funeral last September, just have a look to your left-hand side now, where you see this black slanting roof. This is called Westminster Hall, and this is where the coffin was laid in state prior to them then walking across where we've just come from, and the funeral was at Westminster Abbey. The Queen is buried where you're going this afternoon, St George's at Windsor. Parliament is nowhere as old as it looks. You might look at this thinking, wow, hundreds of years old. Actually, 1860s. But the style is called Gothic, and Gothic makes it look much older than it really is. 650 members sit inside the building, two houses inside, House of Commons, House of Lords. When we vote in the elections, the people we choose sit in the Commons because they're chosen by the common people. House of Lords have got titles. Lady this, Lord someone, Baron so-and-so. Longest a government can be in office, 5 years. Last year was an extraordinary year. We had the loss of the Queen, which was, well, I mean, I'll talk more about that later at Windsor. But we lost the Queen, which was, well, it was a piece of history. And we had 3 prime ministers in 1 year, which for us is unheard of. We started the year with Boris Johnson. You may know Boris. Kind of, well, you can't miss Boris. It's sort of like a mad sheepdog crossed with a professor on acid. It was completely demented. That was followed by poor soul Lettuce Liz. Do you know about Lettuce Liz? The shortest serving Prime Minister of the United Kingdom ever. And she's referred to as Lettuce Liz because there was actually a kind of joke / competition. What had the longer shelf life? A lettuce in a grocery store or the Prime Minister? Unfortunately, the lettuce won. So she's referred to as Lettuce Liz. I mean, she made such a mess of things. I mean, you really have to really work at it to make it that bad. But she managed. And then we have Rishi Sunak, who is now our Prime Minister. So we had 3 Prime Ministers in 1 year. Quite an unusual year for the UK. Then as we're driving to your left-hand side, we're running parallel with the reason London stands on the site, the River Thames, second longest river in the country. As we head westwards, we're about to pass one of the major museums of London, Tate Britain. Now, we're very lucky in London. We have just over 100 museums and galleries, open 7 days a week, and the fantastic news, they're free. How good are we? We're fabulous, darling. Look, just coming up on the right, this is Tate Britain. Now, this is where you find the British masters. If you wanted to see Turner, Constable, Gainsborough, Stubbs, that is where you go to. One of the questions I dread most as a guide, could you recommend a museum? We've got over 100. It's very specific what you want to see. You want to see wonderful British art? Take Britain. You want to see weird and wonderful? Take modern. You want to see the wonders of ancient civilization? Did you go to British Museum? Yeah. So each museum is totally different. It is entirely your personal choice. Over to the left side, look across the river, that very odd building with a crane, which you'll see again in a minute as we go forwards. That's MI6. That's where James Bond works. Now, very often in London, you go by somewhere, you see something and you think, do you know, this is really odd, but I could swear I've seen it before. We've got so many movies now made in London. We are the 3rd most used city in the world. Number 1, most used, any guesses? Number 2, number 1, Hollywood. Number 2, New York. Number 3, London. Look to the left-hand side, that is the bridge Judi Dench stands on in Skyfall as that building explodes in front of her. So, if I throw names at you like James Bond, Harry Potter, The Da Vinci Code with Tom Hanks, if you are familiar with Love Actually, Notting Hill, Bridget Jones' Diary, all these movies made in London. So when you think, do you know what, I've seen this before, I'm sure I have, actually, you do, you probably have seen it before. So Tate Britain we just passed, 4 Tate museums now in the UK, 2 in London, 1 in St Ives in Cornwall, and the other one is in Liverpool where the Beatles came from. It all started because of a man called Henry Tate. By profession, he was actually a sugar merchant, but he started collecting art, and people were very sarcastic and sceptical, and they actually said, what does this man know about art? He's just a grocer. Well, he proved them to be very wrong, because not only did he give us the amazing collection of art, but he also gave us the sugar cube. Henry Tate founded the Tate Foundation and the Sugar Cube as well. And if you see any of the sugars whilst you're in this country, on packets, little ones in restaurants, Tate and Lyle, that was his company. Over to the left side, as I said, this is all new developments on the other side of the tracks. Look to the left, that's the US Embassy. Can you see that square building with kind of like cones on the side? That is the new American Embassy. It's the other side of the tracks. Now, we drove earlier through Grosvenor Square when I showed you that building that's being redone. You don't go from that side to this side in the world. In London, you basically aspire from that side to this side. I'm afraid it's gone the wrong way around. Mayfair, where the embassy used to be, that is the area. Other side of the tracks, I mean, there's huge amounts of regeneration, as you can see. Lots of new builds. In particular, this building coming up on your left, you see the building with the chimney stacks? This is a disused power station. This was called originally Battersea Power Plant, Battersea Power Station. It was abandoned in the 1970s and it stood empty for over 30 years. It's only just about been redeveloped. Lots of very, very expensive housing around the power station. Also, they've redesigned the whole thing, and I went there before Christmas. Have you been, Brian? It's a bit odd, to be honest. You go inside and, well, first of all, I'm a guide. I couldn't find my way out. I was like, there's no signage. All the shops are really high end, and it's like, well, where do the normal people shop? And it's a bit soulless. I don't know how to quite say it, but bless you. It's a bit, but it's just a bit strange. But anyway, what they've done over there is pretty amazing, and if you can see in the backdrop, you've got apartment blocks as well. These are going for millions. So you're going to Paris. You will hear the guide talk about left bank, right bank. We just say north, south, and there's always been a big divide between the two. The north side has always been the important bit. The main galleries, museums, royal buildings, shopping areas. South side for a very long time was like the poor relation, but that's changed quite a lot in the last 40-45 years. The Ferris wheel, the London Eye, south side. Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, south side. Tate Modern Museum, south side. So lots and lots of redevelopment all the way along the river on the south side. If you're looking at the power station thinking, that's strange, but it looks familiar. Are any of you familiar with the rock group Pink Floyd? Okay, so that appeared on the front of one of their albums called Animals. And there's a bit of a story that goes with it. If you Google it or you have it, or you look at it in a shop, it's that building on the front of the album, and above it there is this enormous inflatable pink pig. They decided to do the photo shoot down here at Battersea Power Station. This is years ago when it was abandoned, and they came down here with all the camera equipment and all the stuff, and this pig, they blew up this huge inflatable pink pig, they tied it to one of the towers, and they started doing their thing. It was a very, very windy day, and the pig broke loose, the thing snapped. The way we're going right now, we are heading towards Windsor, but also this is the way out to Heathrow Airport, and this is the route very often that aircraft take when they're coming into land, depending where they're from. They follow the line of the river almost out to Heathrow. There's a flight on the way to Heathrow, and the captain radioed ahead to say that he just passed a flying pink pig. When they landed and opened the doors of the aircraft, the police were waiting because they thought, well, actually maybe the pilots had a couple of drinks during the night. It was an interesting experience. So the River Thames, the reason why London is here, as I said, and if you look at the main capitals of Europe, Prague, Budapest, Paris, London, Dublin, what do you find? Water. And also important royal buildings are always built by the river. So we're going to Windsor Castle, it stands just by the river. Yesterday I was at Hampton Court Palace, it stands on the river. Parliament we've just passed, that's officially called Palace of Westminster. The important royal buildings will always be by water, because if you go back in time, no trains, no planes, no automobiles, how did everyone get around? Boat. The River Thames is tidal. It can rise and fall as much as 22 feet between a high and a low tide. And compared to a lot of other rivers in major cities, actually it's quite clean. It's one of the cleaner. I mean, I wouldn't recommend you swim in it or drink from it, but it's actually not that bad. Maybe when you go on to Paris, maybe do a boat ride, nice way to see the city, if you have the time. In case the guide forgets to tell you in Paris when you do your city tour, do you know why all the fish in Paris are mad? No, not pollution. That's because the fish in Paris are in the Seine. Okay, we got there. As I said earlier, you'll miss me in a very strange kind of way. A few days' time you'll be in Paris, you'll be on a city tour, you'll be listening to the guy talking into the microphone like this, and you'll be sitting in the bus thinking, I wonder what he's saying. And you'll be sitting on that tour thinking, gosh, I wish I was back in London on that city tour. with that 40-year-old model.
40-ish.
We'll talk. As I said, we're not built here for the traffic, as you witnessed yesterday. London it's a challenge. That's a nice word for it. London is a challenge on a normal day, but yesterday, holy moly! I heard from Brian you had an experience and a half. I was not that far behind you. I had a group for the day, and it was just trying to get. You were just having to think on your feet, and it was just a nightmare. But anyway, the way to go. Bike riding, and you'll notice bikes galore as we drive. On the right hand side, by the way, you'll see through the trees the Royal Chelsea Hospital. This was founded by King Charles II in the 1600s, and this is a facility for wounded soldiers. They had a facility down at Greenwich for wounded sailors, but they didn't have a facility for soldiers. So over to your right now, coming into view, you will see the Royal Chelsea Hospital, and this is where every May we hold an enormous event in the grounds where we're looking now. I don't know if any of you are keen gardeners or familiar with many London big events. The Chelsea Flower Show. It is one of the things to attend. If you are somebody of consequence, a socialite, you come to the Chelsea Flower Show. The Queen always attended one of the first days, and it's all set up in the grounds over to your right. Charles II founded the facility. And of course now we have Charles III. I'm actually quite surprised we've got Charles III. We've had 2 Charleses already, and it didn't really go very well. Charles I, do you know what we did to him? Okay, so 1640s we had the English Civil War, and it culminates with us executing the King of England. Charles I, thank you very much, goodbye apple pie. We chopped his head off. 11 years no monarchy in England. Could you imagine us without royals? It's what we do best. As I always say to people, we have the most watched and followed monarchy in the world, and I'm very proud to say we have the most famous family alive on the planet, with the exception of the Kardashians, of course. Oh yeah, you're looking at the pagoda, the Buddhist temple. This was a gift from the Buddhist community to the people of London. We're one of the most diverse cities on the planet. We've got 14 religions practiced daily, 300 languages spoken, and over 100 museums and galleries. So pretty much really when you're in London, doesn't matter what language you speak, what religion you follow, what your interest is, literally there is something here for everybody. The area we're coming into now, this is another of the very exclusive areas, Chelsea. This area now coming up on the right, these buildings are worth literally millions. This used to be just a small village. This was the village of Chelsea. It was a small village where they made sails and boat equipment because this was a small village standing by the river. And London actually is a series of villages. Do you remember earlier in the day we went through Mayfair? We're now in Chelsea. Bloomsbury, Belgravia, Shoreditch, Wapping. These were all villages, and as the villages got bigger, they came to make up what is today Greater London. You'll also see some houseboats further down. Oh, actually, if you look on the other side as well, you can see quite a lot of mud and gunge. That's a fairly low tide, very low. So, we are heading westwards, out towards Earl's Court. I know you've been in and out a few times already, so I just thought this was a slightly alternative view of London. Now, oh, mind the White Van Man. Have you yet discovered White Van Man? Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh right, he's very special. Okay, look, there's another one on the right there. You're going to see them all over as we're driving. There's another one to the right there. White Van Man is a very special creature. He is basically going to come into your life and ruin you. They are tradespeople. They're electricians, they're plumbers, they're decorators. So you make an appointment with one of these charming gentlemen. Whatever time you arrange, never shows on time. You've arranged for him to come at 10:30 in the morning. It's now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No sign. You phone the number. You know what happens. Voicemail. You leave a very polite message. I'm sorry to trouble you. You're not sorry, but you're British. We're sorry about everything here. I'm sorry to trouble you. You were supposed to be here at 10 this morning. It's now 4:30 in the afternoon. I've drunk a bottle of Chardonnay, lost the will to live, and I'm just wondering, will you be here any time before the next Olympics? The answer? They ignore you. When they're ready and they're in the mood, they will turn up in a white van. They come into your house and there's a very special ceremony. They look. It could be the most minor thing. It could be one nail in a wall. They look. The mouth goes down. Then the head goes. Then they suck through their teeth. It could. There's a convention. It could be the most minor thing. They will be with you for months to come. French. They will be with you for months to come. They will drink your tea, eat your biscuits, and destroy your home for a large amount of money. They've normally got names like Dave, Steve, Wayne, Gary, known as Gaza, and they're quite special. And this is White Van Man, where we just got cut up by one, so I thought I'd point him out. So we're actually not doing so badly. Traffic is a bit of an anomaly. As I said earlier, you drive everywhere. Texas, I mean, you're huge. Compared to us, do you know how many times we fit into the United States? 39 times over. We're that big. I mean, if you want to do country to state, we're the size of Alabama as a country. That's how small we are. So driving here, it's the absolute last resort. Driving is the last option. Not only is it super stressful, but it is also hideously expensive. I don't know if you know, if anyone's mentioned it, but we now have to pay to drive in. Do you know about this? Okay, about 18 years ago now, the Mayor of London said the traffic here was so bad, he would do everything possible to stop us driving, which you can see is working really well. Monday to Friday, 7 in the morning till 6 in the afternoon, and on a weekend from midday till 6 we pay congestion charge, £15 a day, just to drive into the middle, just to drive in. That's $21, $22 to enter. Number 2, petrol, gas. Roughly, what are you paying for a gallon? I know it varies state to state, roughly 3 something. Okay, we are currently, ours is a bargain at the moment, we're paying $8 a gallon. If you were here last summer, it was over 10. And then the final problem, you've spent £15 congestion charge, $8 a gallon for gas. Problem number 3, parking. Look, I mean, where do you park? If you ever come back to London with a hire car, which I suggest you don't, but if for some reason you had a car, as far as parking is concerned, my suggestion, Scotland. It will be quicker and easier. If you can find anywhere to park, on-street parking, you're looking at about, it's about $8 an hour to park in the street. That is why the way we travel is subway, which is why yesterday you saw that chaos. We rely on it so highly. So, we shall wiggle our way out of here. As you realise, we're not built for this traffic. You notice one lane going west, one lane going east. If something happens up ahead, do you know where you're going? Nowhere, exactly. So we just have to do what we do. Now, I have been talking at you for what probably feels like a lifetime. I'll keep it interesting, okay. I'm going to give you a bit of a breather in a minute, because I'm not somebody who believes in just talking for the sake of talking. Because I've been on tours where I've actually sat on a tour bus thinking, oh God, I wish this person would just shut up for 10 minutes. And frankly, where we're going to be going now, we're going to be going on a main route out to Windsor. And you'll see lots of things that you probably have at home, like grass and lampposts. So I'm not going to just talk and talk and talk at you for the sake of talking. However, is there anything up to now that I've mentioned or not mentioned, or anything you've seen or you've wondered and thought, yeah, okay, fine, but what about... I've been asked if there are any old blue police boxes. There's one at Earl's Court Station. and there's one in the City of London, nearby to St Paul's Cathedral. But there's only a couple of them left. The red phone boxes as well are disappearing, unfortunately, because look, I mean, how can I put who doesn't have a cell phone? Nobody. Right, so that just answered the question. So, I mean, most of those phone booths are still working, majority, but I mean, the last time I used a payphone like that, 1976, I wasn't even born. Thank you, Adrian. Actually, I can remember I was in the street on my cell phone and I couldn't hear very clearly. So I actually saw a phone booth. I went in and closed the door so I could hear. But I mean, apart from that, who uses a payphone? No. Tourists for photos. Have you had a photo chance with the phone booth? But yeah, I was going to say, if not in Windsor, there's a couple in the station. If you didn't, not the blue one. No, those are only a couple of those left. Not now. We're heading out to Windsor. So, as you can see now, once again, you notice all the buildings are very much the same. Also, if you're looking for street signs, people often say to me, "How do you know where you are? Are there any street signs or street names?" Well, it just depends how we feel. Sometimes they're halfway up a wall, sometimes they're low down, sometimes they're on railings, and sometimes, actually, guess what? We didn't even bother. It's a surprise. Now, I understand with Brian you've been to Trafalgar Square. That is for us the centre of the universe, and everything works out from the square. So if you look as we go forwards for the street sign, if you get ready to look, just coming up on the right hand side, it's halfway up the wall, and you can see it says Gunter Grove SW10. SW10 is what we call the postcode, or you would say back home zip code. So SW means we are southwest of the square. If you're in NW3, you're northwest. E5, you're east. So the letters tell you the direction, and then the number tells you which district you're in. By the way, we're very confused as well. If you look on the right, you see the speed sign in that red circle, 20 miles an hour. Any street signs you see with speed limits, any distance to destination, everything is miles. If you see the gas stations, the price we pay for petrol is litres. We think in gallons, we drive in miles, and if you look in the cars and buses, speed indicator is miles and kilometres. We're confused. .com. We were European, but obviously now with Brexit, we were never European. I mean, we just never got it. We're British, we're alternative. And of course now we've got 3 fantastic get out of jail cards. Whatever happens, if you want a day off work or you don't feel like going somewhere, you've got 3 choices. COVID, global warming or Brexit. At the moment we haven't got any tomatoes, it's because of Brexit. Really? We've got these 3 get out of jail cards that are going to be used for the next 1,000 years. So, there we are, tirade over. Any other? Tell me, man. Is it common? I wouldn't say it was common, but it's not uncommon. I mean, you can go to sort of like, there's another area in the north of town called Maida Vale and Regent's Park, so you've got some people that live on houseboats there. That's Chelsea Harbour where we've just passed. So it's not commonplace because it's not sort of, we're not a port as such, but we have got places around London where you can have a houseboat. Yeah. Yep, you have to pay for the moorings. I mean, it's cheaper than trying to buy one of these, but you've still got to pay an amount. London's a great city, but as I said, I mean, you need money and you've got to be fast moving. This is New York. This is London, New York, Paris. I mean, you've got to be fast on your feet. 6'9" and bulletproof. So, we are heading out towards the main route and head to Windsor. Any other thoughts? Okay, right. We have been together for several hours now, and I have bombarded you with information. For good behaviour, I'm going to just leave you chillax for a little while. As I said, nothing worse than a guide that you just sit there thinking, shut up. When we get closer to Windsor, I'm going to tell you the story of how the castle came to be. I know you're excited. 900 years of English history. I bet you can't wait, can you? Yeah. No, I'll tell you the storyline so that when we go inside later on and we're off the bus and I say, this is the Round Tower, that's the library, it will make more sense. As I promised, when we get to Windsor, time to grab some lunch. Then we'll go up to the castle. Actually, it's nice, I understand you're having dinner later on in the day, which is actually really good because the biggest, I was going to say complaint, but I don't get complaints on tours. The biggest comment I get with Windsor, I wish we'd had more time. It's a really lovely town. If you're thinking you're just going to see some castle stuck in a field, you're completely wrong. It's a really lovely town centre. And a couple of you were just saying at Westminster Abbey you didn't have enough time to really do the shop properly. Windsor, you've got really lovely gift shops, you've got clothing stores, you've got cosmetics, jewellery. It's a proper town, and actually it's nice as well for you to get away from London for a few hours and see where normal people live. I mean, don't get me wrong, London's great, but you see this traffic you saw yesterday. I mean, living in the centre, it's actually hard work. So you're going to see something alternative. We're only going about 22 miles, but it's a different dynamic. The people are much calmer, everything's slower. And as I said, after you've been into the castle, you'll have some time to have a look round, which is great because, as I say, normally we're coming back in to take you to dinner, but you're having dinner in Windsor, so you can shop till you drop. It's all good. Any other questions? Now, are you exercising at the back or your hand up?
I'm
Exercising, okay, go for it. Right, breathe. Little bit of space, but I shall return. What do you say in the States? Momentarily, which I never really quite understood, but anyway, it sounds quite exciting. Just a little bit, okay. Will you miss me? I know it's not your fault. You're only human. Right, so I'm going to shut up for a few minutes. You've got a better understanding of what it's all about. So, right the way back to the very beginning of time, and we go back to a year 1066. Does anybody know what happened here in 1066? William the Conqueror, Battle of Hastings, and basically William the Conqueror is the beginning of what we would term today modern day royals. He invaded, crowned himself King of England at Westminster Abbey where we stopped earlier. Now he's a stranger in a foreign land and he wants to make an impression on the people. I'm the king, I'm in charge, and you'll do what I say. There's no way to communicate, so what he decides to do is build a line of fortresses along the river. And what he built furthest to the west of London was Windsor Castle. However, what was built out here originally was made of wood. The wooden fortress over time has disappeared. The oldest part of the castle, which you will see this afternoon, is called the Round Tower, and it dates from about the year 1170. You're going to be looking at roughly 840 years of English history. As we then go into the 12th, 13th, 1400s, all the kings and queens come to Windsor. They extend, they add, they modify. In the 1400s, we have a kind of ongoing civil war between the two most powerful houses in the land, House of York, House of Lancaster. Now, the emblem for the House of York is a white rose. House of Lancaster is a red rose. Would anyone take a wild guess what we might call the conflict? Thank you very much. Back in these times, what is one thing you can do to end wars?
History.
Surrender. Anything else? Marriage. Thank you very much. Elizabeth of York marries a man called Henry Tudor. He's from the House of Lancaster. Lancastrian marries Yorkist. War of the Roses ends, and we begin what is probably the most famous period of English history, the Tudors. You know the names. Elizabeth I, Bloody Mary, the Catholic Queen, Henry VIII, the one with the 6 wives. In 1558, Elizabeth becomes Queen of England. She dies in 1603. Into the 1640s we go, the English Civil War. Cavaliers, Roundheads. Cavaliers are royals, Roundheads are the ordinary people. The English Civil War culminates with the execution of the king. Remember I told you we got rid of our king? Charles I. 11 years, no monarchy. Imagine us without the royals. Unthinkable. After 11 years of Oliver Cromwell, we thought, you know what, this is really not going very well. Theatres were shut down, music was banned in public, you were not even allowed to celebrate Christmas. Churches were looted. He's what's called a Puritan. Everything had to be very clean, very simple, very basic. After 11 years, we thought, yeah, let's get the king back. Well, Charles I won't come back because he actually doesn't have a head. His son was living in exile in France, and in 1660, we brought his son back, and that's Charles II. Now, Charles II is one of the very few kings of English history that we give a nickname to. You're going on to France, so when you do the tour, you'll hear the guides talk about Louis the Fat, Henry the Short, Philip the Ugly. We don't do that, but actually, Charles II, we do give him a name. We call him the father of the nation. Not because he's actually very close to the people, but he was very busy with women. With his wife, how many children? 0. With the mistresses that we know of, 13 illegitimate children. He was literally the father of the nation. Everywhere this man went, he had a relative. Daughter, nephew, godson, he got kids everywhere. In a kind of celebration, hurrah! I'm king, I'm in charge. He decides to add a whole new wing onto this building. And the rooms that you will walk through this afternoon are from Charles II, roughly 1673. Into the 1700s we go. Are you still with me at the back? Thumb is no good. You know what you're supposed to do now. That's better. The royal acknowledgement. 1700s, Queen of England, Queen Anne. Poor Queen Anne. She is a complete mess. She marries George of Denmark. How many times was that woman pregnant? 17 pregnancies. All the children died before she did. So when she dies in 1714, what do? There's no natural succession. What do we do now? You find somebody. There's a relative somewhere. We went to Germany, and that man became George I. He was followed by George. Who was followed by George? Now George III lost 2 big things. Does anyone know what George III lost? Yes. Thank you. Double gold star. Well done. He went mad. If any of you ever saw a movie or a stage play, Madness of King George, that's George III. And he went mad. The last 9 or so years of George III's life, he literally can't rule. His son has to rule on his father's behalf. And this man is called the Prince Regent. And we call the period the Regency. Finally, after all this upset and turmoil, 1820, George III died, and his son became George IV. Hurrah! Made it. Finally, got there. Barbie, let's have a party. He wants to celebrate, so he adds another wing on the castle. The wing added by George IV is the area where the royal family stay when they're in residence. So just to differentiate, Charles II, 1670s, you're going into those rooms. 1820s, George IV, never open. Still with me? Okay. 1837, we begin the second longest reign of any British monarch. We saw her at Buckingham Palace, Victoria. She marries Albert, who we saw first thing, very happily married. Very suddenly, in December 1861, Albert dies at Windsor from typhoid. Victoria is widowed for 40 years and dies in 1901. And you will be very happy to know, folks, you have made it to the 20th century. Do you feel you're aging? Not much happens at Windsor. 2 world wars. The royal family leave London to come out here and escape the devastation in central London. June the 2nd, 1953, Elizabeth II is crowned Queen of England at Westminster Abbey, where we've just stopped. This becomes her favourite home. She is staying in Windsor on her wedding anniversary, November the 20th, 1992, when a terrible fire breaks out in the castle. 9 rooms were gutted by fire. 100 rooms were damaged by water as they battled to stop it go through. When they get the fire under control, the estimate to rebuild the damage, £37 million. The rooms were shut for 5 years, and they reopened on the Queen's 50th wedding anniversary, her golden wedding, November 20, 1997. And as they say in the very best Hollywood blockbusters, the rest is history. You've just survived the story of Windsor. How well was it? Right, here's the plan, folks. We're coming off the motorway literally now. We are going into a parking area and we are going to be saying goodbye to the bus and we're going to be saying goodbye to Adrian until you go back to the hotel. This bus is going back with you, Adrian is going back with you. You can leave things in here, you can bring things with, but Adrian will go and get some lunch or wander around. But you need to think, do I need this? Shall I bring it? Will I leave it? You will not see the bus again until you go back to the hotel. We will go into Windsor, into the town. I will walk you up into the town centre. I'll give you some time to grab sandwiches, soup, salad, and then we'll regroup. I will walk you up to the castle. We'll go inside together. Part of the time in the castle you'll be with me. Part of the time you use an audio guide. That's just how the system works. Part of the time you can take photos. Part of the time no photography, but I will explain everything as we go through the afternoon. Just one thing to say, when we go into the castle, there will be airline style security. If you have anything in your bags, backpacks, purses that would be problematic, please leave it on the bus. If you happen to have a pocket knife, nail scissors, anything sharp, leave it here because you'll get stopped at security and it turns into a bit of a muddle. Water, liquids, they're not interested. If you come from lunch with a bottle of water, ladies, you've got perfume, makeup, no big deal. We have to go through airline style security at the castle. Everything electronic, battery operated and metallic needs to go through. You are wearing a belt with a metal buckle. You've got an iPad, a cell phone, a camera. Anything electronic, battery operated or metallic must go through. Easiest thing to do, if you've got a bag or a backpack, just put all your things in the bag, put the bag through, and get up the other side. It's more, I mean, it x-rays the bag, but it doesn't damage any film or anything. Well, no, it won't damage anything. No, not at all. So, all good? Right, so if you now start to look over to the left-hand side, way off in the distance, up on the hillside, you can see coming into view the silhouette of the largest and longest inhabited castle in the world. If you're thinking, gosh, Windsor looks like it's a really big town, that's not the town, that's just the castle. Just over 1,000 rooms in the castle. The town is around the base. Do you know or do you remember why the castle is built where it stands? On the river, exactly. You listened well, I'm impressed, thank you. Have a look. As we go forward, start looking to the left. Just as we go by this line of trees, keep looking left side and look down and you will see the same river that we've just travelled along when we left London, when we were driving by Parliament out towards the motorway. I took you out via the river, and if you were here 400 years ago you'd have followed exactly the same route. Look to your left hand side now, look down below, that is the same river that you saw as we headed out of town. So, any questions? No, all good, right. I'm going to turn this into the deluxe edition tour, where we... You haven't heard it yet. Where we get off the bus, there are 3 bathrooms. Do we need a photo? Yes, okay. Please remember me. This is the tour where you had 2 bathroom stops. I mean, really, the glamour doing this, I can't tell you. So when we get off the bus, there are bathrooms. You will see where the restrooms are. There is also... No. Smile and wave like the Queen. Or the King now. It's very odd for me to keep saying the King. You know, for our lifetime, all we've ever said is, wonder what the Queen's doing, wonder where the Queen is, I wonder what Her Majesty's up to, and suddenly it's His Majesty. And even the broadcasters, the newsreaders are getting it wrong. I've heard the other day, so today, Her Majesty the King. And I was like, really? Okay. Is there something we should know? Anyway, so where was I? Bathrooms. Right, where the restrooms are, there's also some gift stores. Don't. Basically 2 reasons. Number 1, Where we are going to be is where every tour bus in the entire universe has to park. You are a captive audience and you've got some really trashy stuff for sale. Pens that when you try and use them are dry, umbrellas that when you open them blow inside out, don't bother. Number two, if you start power shopping now, you are going to carry everything around with you all afternoon, through the castle, through the dolls. If you are shoppers and you want to pick up some souvenirs and gifts, after the tour, before you meet Brian to go for dinner, you're going to have time, because as I said, this is great, you're actually eating in Windsor, because normally we are rushing back into London to the dinner. So this actually works out really well. So if you are shoppers, wait until you've been in the castle and then you...
So as we have just been before, there is a point in the castle where we will have to turn off our phones and devices and no longer take pictures and videos, so I'll show you as much as I can, if I can. Castle gates.
Where the king is in residence today, that is used for what is called royal archives. In other words, storage. Now I don't know about you, but personally I have a garage. But I suppose if you happen to be King or Queen of England and you've got, well, old whiskey bottles, stuff you want to hide, then you've got to put it somewhere, and this is...
Wow. And it was horses.
This is used for storage. Now there are letters, documents, manuscripts in this tower that we have never been allowed to see, and I doubt we ever will. You know, royalty, aristocracy, nobility, it is steeped in scandals, lovers, illegitimates, all sorts of exciting stuff. So, to actually go and visit, you have to have written permission. If you do get granted permission to visit, which is very unusual, you will be met and escorted at all times. If you even need to go to a bathroom, someone goes with you, waits outside and walks back. Because what in there could literally bring down the castle walls. Now down below, you've got the lovely garden. You may be looking, thinking, okay, great, but where's the moat? Well, I hate to ruin the trip. There's never been water down below. Sorry. Two good reasons. Number one, do you remember when we drove in on the bus? We passed the river. We're now 220 feet above the Thames. 1170, they had no idea how to get the water up here. Number two, what you're looking at is built on chalk. You put chalk and water together, not a good idea. So this is simply what is known as a dry moat. Hopefully doesn't need much explanation. Now the castle is divided into three areas, and we're going to walk into the middle wall. Follow me.
Is that a bean? To the castle. Sorry for the ground view, I just don't want to show you people because it's kind of rude. I will try to show off the castle though.
She's so cute. Oh yeah.
So you are now at the crossroads of the castle, and remember when we were first coming in I showed you the exit, the gatehouse. When you've finished your visit you're going to be going down the hill, round to the left, and you'll see the big archway. We saw it from the outside. That is where you exit. Now on the way down in the distance you can see one lonely guard all on his own. Grey winter coat, Canadian bearskin hat. That is as close as you are going to get to doing a photo with a guard. There is a rope in front of him simply because of the number of visitors. People get way too excited. Go and stand kind of level and you can get a photo. Otherwise, without the rope, people go right up to him, start pulling the jacket, pulling faces at the guy. Remember what I told you at Buckingham Palace? He is doing a military duty. Pulling the jacket, pulling faces, handing over cell phone numbers. That was just the boys. So this is as close as you are going to get. As you walk down towards the guard, on the right, this building is called St. George's Chapel. This is where Meghan and Harry were married back in 2018. Also, inside, last September, is buried the Queen. It is a one-way system when you go inside. When you enter, look at the ceiling. The architecture is stunning. It's called fan vaulting, carved by hand in stone in the early 1500s, and there is very little of it left. Then you will follow the yellow brick road. You go up 3 little steps, and on the left-hand side is a side chapel where the King and Queen, who were the Queen's parents, are buried. The Queen herself with Prince Philip and the ashes of her sister, Princess Margaret. Then as you continue round in the choir, in the floor you will see a large black stone. And that is the burial of Henry VIII. He is buried in this chapel with his third and favourite wife, Jane Seymour. Does anyone know why she was favourite? Thank you. Well, you all got it, yeah. She gave him the long-awaited son who he desperately wanted. So do take time to go inside. It is pretty amazing. Look out for the side chapel where the Queen and Prince Philip are buried. Look out for the huge black gravestone in the centre of the choir stalls, Henry VIII. In the same tomb is buried Charles I. Remember what we did to him? According to the legend, after we executed the king, they brought him out here, they sewed his head back on, and do you enjoy your lunch? And he's buried in the same tomb as Henry VIII and Jane Seymour.
So could Harry just not get married at Westminster?
Westminster is for the kind of real high roll. The King and Queen, or the future King and Queen. Harry is one further down the pecking order because he was below his father, below his brother. So when you get down to the lesser mortals, it would normally be here. So when, actually, having said that, Charles and Camilla married in 2005 and the blessing was in the chapel. Would you like to see where the king is? Right, follow me.
The king.
You always, when I sit down, he always comes up and
So I'm gonna ask around, see if I can meet the king. And if I
I
can,
highly doubt that.
all right, I'm gonna come. But if I meet the king,
If
it's
you
just gonna
meet
be
the
me.
king, I
Well,
will
if
personally give you $100.
All right. Well, I'm going to meet the king for the money. On top of that, you're not gonna get your interview.
You're not gonna get to see the king. The guards are way too strict.
That's true. I'm gonna walk up to the king and shake his hand and say hello. And then
Don't
he
think
goes.
that's going to happen.
The guards are gonna come with their guns and be like, "Hey, I'm Mexican. You can check the system."
They're gonna
probably-
grab you by the chest
No, no.
and push you backwards.
Hold on. I can probably go. My ancestors helped build this.
You
know that was funny. Yes. I wonder if they had slip.
Oh yeah,
they did.
Well, I mean, when you say, I mean, they would have had
Service.
rather than slaves. So as you are realising very rapidly, this is massive. Just over 1,000 rooms, security, cleaning, staffing. Someone's got to actually be in charge of the place, and he is called the Governor General of Windsor Castle. And if you get to do the job, you get a rather nice house to live in. That's where the man in charge lives. You get your own waterfall, obviously, the garden area, and every August they open the gardens down below. You pay £2 admission, and you can then walk around inside the gardens. And the money goes to local charity. Then if you look straight ahead, on the wall you can see it says Norman Gate. Now that name is wrong. If that was Norman, it would be late 1000s, early 11. This was actually finished in 1359. Now this is where you have to use a little bit of imagination. So, let me have a look. Step forward. We had Rapunzel, turn, with her lovely long hair. Rapunzel is waiting to be rescued in the tower. What is your name, sir? Parker. Parker, come forward, Parker. Turn, it's your moment of fame. Along comes...
Where do I stop turning?
Along comes Prince Parker with his sword, his shield, his Platinum American Express card. Parker has come to save the day. Now, you don't want him in there, do you? Thank you. How are you going to stop Parker getting in?
Another wall.
Keep going.
Shoot him.
Keep going.
Drop a bomb on him.
You're getting warmer. You've seen it in the movies. You are going to boil up oil, tar, water, anything. It doesn't matter what it is. If it will boil, it will do. Up there between the towers, there's a walkway. As you see Parker coming up the hill, inside the walls there's a series of tunnels. You start to pour the burning liquids down through the tunnels, and he's going to get a very hot early bath.
Oh, like the vertical, like Canterbury.
As we go underneath the arch, I'm going to point above me with my umbrella. Ella, Ella, Ella. What was that there? And you are going to see murder holes, because the whole point of a castle was to keep people
Save. That works too.
That was very awkward.
You just
Why don't we
made
have
it
a nice
awkward. Don't make things awkward. Have fun. Don't make it awkward. Have fun.
Oh snap! I can already see the murder holes. Can you?
So look as we walk through.
Do they ever slam that gate? Do you know? Oh. There was a gate up there too. Did they ever close it?
That would close. That would come down.
Whoa, look at this. King Charles owns all this?
Owns or lives in?
Bit of both.
I want to talk to him.
I'm sure we all do.
Get alone.
I'm going to say I'm your long lost son.
There you are. Well, there, go for it. You can probably trace your lineage back somewhere.
That puts you on the list to be king or something.
Yeah.
Prince,
Somewhere.
what is your first name?
Mendoza. I mean, Eric.
Eric. Prince
Prince
Eric.
Eric.
Prince
Yeah,
Eric.
probably Prince
I think Prince Eric of Mendoza.
That works.
There you are.
I thought of Mexico, but Mendoza sounds better.
There we are.
There's a guard over there too.
Oh, Eric.
So this is where people kind of turn the corner and they say to me, oh my goodness, there's more? How much more is there of the castle? There's plenty. Are you surprised by the sheer size of the place? Yeah.
A little bit.
Now, I tried to give you that history lesson in the bus so you understand how the castle came to be. Where we're standing right now, this is called Engine Court, and hopefully all my hard work now pays off. I very often get asked, when did they build the castle? Okay, round tower, that's 1170. Turn your feet around where I'm walking. You notice this stone is totally different. The architecture's changed. Look above the doorway. Can you see there are two shields? ER 1583. This is the Royal Library, and this is from the time of Elizabeth I, and that is ER Elizabeth Regina, Latin for Queen. If it's a king, it's Rex. Look above the windows that are covered in. Can you see every other slat? There's like a flower. Do you remember the War of the Roses? That is the emblem. Remember, red rose, white rose, they get married to end the war, and that is the emblem of the Tudor dynasty. Then if you just literally move your eyes very gently and look here, the stone is different. The windows are very pointed. It's changed again. You're now looking at 1670s. This is Charles II, and this is the area that you will go inside very shortly. And then if you just turn your feet one more time, you notice the windows are wider. The architecture's changed, it looks different again. You're now looking over there at the 1820s, and that is George IV. So, standing here, 1170, 1580s, 1670s, 1820s. So when someone says to me, when did they build this castle? It's an ongoing work of art. That is the area that is never open to the public, and that is where the king is in residence today. The man on the horse, that's Charles II, and he's the one with all the kids, and he's the man who commissioned the building of the apartments which you are going to walk through. Now, before you go inside, one way in, this is where you come out. King John Tower, that is the exit. Down the hill, go inside the chapel, There's no photography allowed, and you use the audio.
Sorry, guys.
guide. So I'm going to walk you round to the North Terrace.
What percentage of the castle is open to the public?
Given the number of rooms, I would say about 3%. You're going to walk through around 20 rooms. There are around 1,000 rooms in the castle. I mean, some of the rooms in here are this big, and they're almost like, what's the point? But, I mean, very small percentage. Now, before we go to the entrance for the apartments, do you want to do a group photo?
Yes.
There's very few people.
BRB. I almost fell down the stairs.
If you went now without me, they'll say, "Where's your guide?" They won't even give you wristbands.
No.
The Abbey, but that's how it should be.
There's a cannon over there.
But there's not much point in having official guides.
No.
If you're going to just let road guides in as well.
Exactly.
There's a cannon. When was that introduced?
Look, there's no queue. There's a long queue to go in.
I'll show you all the view in a
So
sec.
here we are. You get your own cannon, and from where we are right now, if you don't like heights, don't look over the sides. Of course, everyone knows.
Heights warning. Goodbye.
You realise how high up we are. I get asked very often, has the castle ever been really seriously attacked? From this height, you understand the whole purpose of being up here. If you look straight ahead, there's one building that kind of dominates the skyline. That is part of one of the most famous schools in the world. If any of you have ever heard of Eton. Eton was founded in 1440 by the King of England, Henry VI. That has educated 20 Prime Ministers of England. The Duke of Wellington, I talked about him this morning. Man that defeated Napoleon, educated there. Prince William, Prince Harry, both educated there. This is one time where, again, things don't translate. This is what we call public school. Now, public school in England is private education. What you call public, we call state education, paid for by the government. Tuition fees at Eton, dollars, you'd be looking at around $65,000 a year.
Zoinks.
I don't know how that sounds, 11 to 18-year-olds. But if you went to an interview and on your CV, you've been to Eton, that is your ticket to success. You need do nothing more. Now, that used to be an old boys club, as we call it. You could trace your family line back generations. Your father, his father, his father, his father, his father. You came from what was known as a line of Etonians. Now it's much more democratic. If you sit an entry paper and they see you've got the ability, but you haven't got the money, you can win a scholarship. So, finally, turn around, walk this way.
Walk this way. You know who Aerosmith is? Aerosmith?
Of course.
Was that an intentional joke on Aerosmith or no?
Depends on my mood. Alright, let me just stop you right here. Alright, my lovelies. You are about to go inside the state apartments. Now, the first thing which you can go to see is Queen Mary's Doll's House. Queen Mary's Doll's House is quite unique. It dates from 1924. It was built for the Queen's grandmother, Mary of Teck. She was obsessed with miniatures. And it's a surreal little world. Where you will see the doll's house, it's on a scale of 1 to 12 and everything works. There's electricity in the doll's house. The light switches go on and off. The elevators go up and down. The floor's real mahogany, the curtains are real silk. There's a wine cellar with these miniature little wine bottles filled with vintage wine. There's a library with first edition leather-bound books in miniature. It's all slightly crazy, but it is rather unique. Then, after the doll's house, you will enter through the state apartments. You are going to walk through a series of around 18 rooms filled to the ceiling with china, porcelain, armour, works of art by Van Dyck, Rubens, Canaletto. It is all the real McCoy. In each room there is a custodian. If the audio doesn't tell you exactly what you want to know, say to that person in the uniform, sorry, excuse me, can you just tell me whatever it is you want to know? That's the room they work in. They should know every stick and stone in the room. A couple of things to add. Number one, there is no photography inside.
Sorry, guys.
Number two, please don't break anything. Breakages must be paid for. You will then exit back in the courtyard where we just stood, down the hill, back into town, do your thing, and then remember you're meeting Brian at 4:45. Straight ahead, where you see that tower, that is called the Brunswick Tower, and if you've seen any footage of the fire at the castle in 1992, that is the section where the flames were literally coming out the windows. And if I hadn't have told you what happened, you would never realise about the fire. But 5 years and £37 million, you'd expect something for your money, wouldn't you? When you reach the Lantern Lobby, on the audio guide, you will walk through into the Lantern Lobby. That's where the fire broke out, and then you enter rooms that follow, and they did the most amazing job. So this is where you turn your cameras off and you turn the audio on. Smartphone, you can use.
Bunch of old people doing cool things with lots of money. It was cool. It was a little boring. We had to kind of rush through it. Kind of wish I could have showed some of the stuff off. There was a necklace for like £2,000. It was pretty crazy. They're changing the guards right now. Check it out. I wonder if our boy down there is gonna get swapped.
Look at that.
They're changing the guards, homie. Bro, it's literally ruining my shot. I wonder how much trouble we'd get if we just followed in behind them. And here comes the leads of children.
C'est là qu'ils vont les buter.
Away they go.